morning, Hunnewell community.
So my name is Alex Pitkin. I was the Principal Architect at SMMA for the Wellesley Hunnewell School. I thought the town did a really smart thing in that they analyzed every building. As you remember, we were working on the high school at that time, which is not a bad approach, is to sort of start at the top, if you will, the flagship. But all the buildings underneath, assessing their qualitative issues and challenges. Those first studies were not about the educational impacts, but it was really more about the infrastructure itself and the quality of the buildings and how long they were going to sustain over time. So I think those first studies really proved which buildings were going to be able to carry forward well into the future, and highlighted the challenges particularly of Hardy and Hunnewell and Upham, and those three buildings, and the need to replace them. Later, when we got into doing some more educational studies and plans, I think that's where we saw opportunities that were happening in the world, not just inside Wellesley public schools, but outside, about how education is changing, how a new building could help to supplement the things that Wellesley was trying to accomplish in older structures. Yeah, Hunnewell's unique location in the town, of course, demographically, meant that it had to stay open in terms of where students resided in the town. Then came the challenge of the fact that it's the smallest of the 7 school sites that we had at that time. So there was really no way to even renovate the existing building or build new without removal of the existing building. So that was one of the first challenges that was recognized, I think, but by all parties. Obviously, there are a lot of local challenges to the site, the 2 streams that are perennial. There's sort of setbacks for flood zones. Working very closely with our neighbor, the library, was really a critical component of how we thought about the building site. As people remember, there was a beautiful oak tree that we all thought highly of. And I think, again, part of those studies, and that's always the fascinating thing about early studies, is it proved the tree was not healthy. And so even though we thought a renovation project might be able to save the tree or even save the original historic structure of the Hunnewell School, it really wasn't accomplishing the educational planning goals that the Wellesley Public Schools had really mandated. And so we did find ourselves leaning towards all new structures as we move forward. Designing a school that did not require fossil fuels for its heating or for its water usage. And so that meant an all-electric building. Worked very closely with the town utility and really aiming for making a roof that would support as large a photovoltaic panel system as possible. And of course, even over the few years that we were designing, panel efficiency improved so much. I think we went somewhere from being able to supply 40% of the energy, we think we're going to be closer to 60%. So we're not going to quite be net zero, but we'll be net zero ready. And as the town continues to build infrastructure around this school, will kind of help lead the way towards a cleaner, carbon neutral future. Yes, here again, I think Wellesley Public Schools and the leadership and the administration really did a great job. This, even though it was so important to hear the voices of the Hunnewell community, it was also opened up more broadly to the entire K-5 community in the Wellesley Public Schools. And so some of those really early meetings where we had our educational planner, David Stevens, in with us, you may recall, and really sort of just a white paper exercise of thinking about what the future of education could be, making buildings that would be flexible enough to support those goals. The neighborhood concept is something that had been happening, was starting to happen in a lot of schools. I think it's really proven itself. It's basically taking a middle school concept where teachers are no longer that sole provider within a classroom. Now they can work together as a cohort or as a team on a grade level typically, and that support really allows for the students to thrive. It really starts to have more student agency and self-direction when the building can support that. And so those neighborhoods, when we look at that in the plan, they show that the 3 classrooms as the model, they also have sort of a living room or a student common space that allows the students and the teachers to flexibly move between those spaces. There's a small group room that allows for sort of push in and pull out, and that's maybe one-on-one directed learning, or maybe small groups that kids can go in with a teacher or even just by themselves, and they can be doing small projects together. And then maybe something that people might not think about, there was an individual toilet in each commons area. And that was important to the administration because there was a recognition that that's time lost when a student has to travel away from the classrooms for those very practical matters. And then keeping the clothes, the dirty boots and the coats. We are still in New England environment here, and keeping those spaces clean was also an important drive in how the building was organized and how those spaces in the neighborhoods on the back formed. They look more like little houses for the kids, whereas the front of the building is much more sort of formal and directed towards the community and those community use spaces. Gymnasium, the cafetorium, and even the library, which mediates between them. I should probably speak to the importance of inclusivity. And again, Wellesley Public Schools really demands that they teach every student and every child in the town. And so we were seeing the specialty program, the TLC, the Therapeutic Learning Centers, and those were carefully located in the building plan along with all the other student support spaces. So they sit outside the neighborhoods, but they're very close at hand. And those teachers, that flexibility, that will change almost every year within the building footprint. I think gone are the days where the elementary school is a closed environment. It has to be accessible to the parents and the public. And I think Wellesley took that very seriously. These are expensive times to be building, and to make these spaces available for community use after hours, not just during the important day in the life of the students and the staff, which the spaces serve very important roles. The gymnasium was made a little bit larger. We're situated very close to the middle school and the high school in town, so there was a thought that having a high school sized court might allow for some flexibility for practices or perhaps even freshman games. But again, that's about flexibility and allowing for future use. The cafetorium is really an exciting space to me. It gives a child a place to exhibit and to rise above the floor, so to speak. So having a stage, having a platform, a place where the child is above the audience is critical to their development of being able to speak in public, perform in public. It's a subtle thing, but it does play a role. And then the students in the audience participate in the fact that they have to take a more sort of formal way of sitting and watching an event unfold. And the dynamic, we had a lot of conversations about combining those spaces. So there is the large door that allows for the two spaces to be opened and connected, whether it's during a performance or after school activities or evening activities. So it, again, just adds another level of flexibility. And those spaces are located so the building can really be closed off after hours, so no one's wandering around the classroom spaces and just staying where they're supposed to stay in the building. Going back to the really challenging parts of the site, so I think we would have all loved to have seen the library on the first floor. We always consider a library to be a heart of a school, a place for the students and staff to come on a daily basis. But we took advantage of this opportunity and we lifted the library up so that it's still in the center of the school, very easily accessed by everyone, and then gave it this sort of overlook over to the cafetorium and kind of borrowing all that natural light in from the cafetorium space as well. So it's a unique opportunity and environment for learning. I should say the other educational spaces that we haven't spoken about are art, music, and the space that we're in right now, the innovation space, which again is this other transition that was happening during our planning process. So every school in the Massachusetts requires now to have an innovation space or what is often called like a little technology lab. So Wellesley was already heading in that direction, but to have a purpose-built space was really important. And again, to have those spaces organized together on the second floor, they're very close to the media center, so they, once again, are a resource to that space. So now those teachers are typically they can be isolated in an elementary school. Here in this building, they're connected. They have their own learning commons, if you will. They're really connected together. Those teachers can now work together and set up projects that are interdisciplinary for the students. And this is, again, goes back to that idea of agency for children. They can reach the tools and necessary products for doing projects in each of these rooms. So it really is about the teacher guiding them, not necessarily telling them exactly what to do. So this part of the building is, I assume, a very active place and will become even more active as the school matures. There were surveys that were done by the Society of College and University Planners. And what they found over the years is when they asked students to come back to their universities or colleges, what was your favorite space? And 95% pick an outdoor space. They choose a place that was important to them for they don't choose classroom 101. So having an outdoor learning space, it was really, I would say it was a bit of an outcome of the very tight site that we had. We had to provide more parking. That was a requirement. So taking up some of that space that is so important for students to get out, get fresh air, would support that. But having a two-story school, which, remember, the old Hunnewell was only a single floor, so now that gives the students on the second floor sort of an easy access to light and ventilation as well. So I really like to see where the Hunnewell community takes that space. It is going to be unique. I think it has this sort of beautiful perch looking over towards downtown Wellesley. Again, it's meant to be just like any other classroom. There's a chalkboard out there. Technology could be put on a cart and brought out. There's plenty of access to power and data for that. So I think that's a really a wonderful opportunity for the school. I love the spaces between the spaces. It's something that we used to talk about a lot back in the studio. So the things that connect classrooms or connect floors, those are, a classroom, becomes sort of a building block, and there are 20 of them in the school, and so you kind of repeat and you make them put all the energy you can into all of the learning spaces. But to my mind, when the student or the teachers leave those spaces between have to still mean something. They have to not be dark. They can't be, dingy. They have to tell some sort of a story. And honestly, those are the most blank walls where students can actually express their work. So teachers and administration can hang artwork. They can put projects up on the walls. And so that really starts to connect the building in a way that's much more than sort of each individual cohort or neighborhood. The opportunity to do the main stair in the lobby I thought was a really important space. It's right in the middle of everything. I'd like to think of that as almost another stage set where kids will kind of see themselves going up and down, and hopefully some playfulness will come from that. We tried to make that a bit of a memento for the natural environment that we were building in. We all talked about how important the site was to Wellesley. This was a really, it's just a beautiful place on the path. It's so close to downtown. It was more than just a school. And so to kind of bring back some of those elements that we knew we had to remove the tree, we knew a few other elements were going to be going, so to try to reinstate those back into the school in a more abstract manner we got a lot of pleasure out of doing that. We always took a lot of pleasure in, somebody described the building footprint as an accordion. So again, that sense of compression that the design was required to fit on the site. That gave us an opportunity to create places to bring daylight and natural ventilation into the building wherever possible. So I'd like to think that we think very carefully about every corridor having light at the end of it, that there's, obviously we have a beautiful sunny day today here, but even on a cloudy day, I hope people will see how much light is in the space and how that affects students' and teachers' moods really across the entire school year.
Yeah.